Heavy Live with Scoop B. We're broadcasting from Heavy on Lakers Facebook page, Heavy on Celtics Facebook page, as well as from Periscope on Twitter at Scoop B, as well as Heavy's YouTube channel. We got a special guest. I heard a guy named Employee Number 8 is in the building on Labor Day. We got my main man, Antoine Walker, 1996 NBA draftee on the line. What's going on, Antoine?
Man, not much, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Man, we've been trying to make this happen since I bumped into you at the airport in Charlotte.
No, All-Star weekend, right?
Man, that was a fun weekend.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago, right? Back in Charlotte, right?
That's when everybody was still outside.
All right, yeah, this is true. Before the pandemic.
How are you adjusting to that?
It's been okay. I mean, first and foremost, I got to give thanks to God. None of my family have been sick. My kids are healthy, friends, people that have been around me. I've had a few people have COVID, but just small, minor scares, nothing really major that they were able to quarantine and bounce right back. But for the most part, it's been great. I've been healthy. I've been able to stay kind of free from it. So it's been some times. I mean, for me personally, I'm a sports guy. So the first couple months were tough. Having the NBA back, and it looks like we have baseball, football. Having sports back is huge for me, and everything that I do right now in my life is around sports. So it was tough in the beginning trying to figure out if we're going to have sports again. And it's slowly coming back. Obviously, we know everything is not back 100%, but it's still good to have some semblance of sports. And hopefully shortly here, we can hopefully find a virus and hopefully move past this pandemic.
The 6th overall pick in the 1996 NBA draft by way of the Boston Celtics, by way of Kentucky, by way of Mount Carmel High School. I've always wanted to know this. What were your thoughts when Pitino went from being your college coach to your NBA coach?
That was a weird time in my life. I mean, actually, it was great. I really, obviously, Coach was a father figure for me. He really helped me in my development in college to becoming a pro. So when he was going to be the coach, I mean, I was excited about it because I had nothing but success with him. It was great for a little while. And what I mean by that, Coach wanted to win right away. He didn't have the patience that was necessary to be an NBA coach at the time. He come from a situation where he had just won 75, 80% of his games. And then now you're going into a rebuilding situation, and Coach wasn't ready for that. Because Boston, and you know that, Boston's a city that wants results. And he took on a two-headed monster being the head coach and the GM. So when you take on that responsibility, the pressure lies on you. And so just play with too many people, change the roster over. And I'll give you just a small example. I mean, we traded Chauncey Billups at All-Star break. So that's like one example that was really, really bad to do that. We just didn't have the patience. But overall, it was great. Coach paid me, made me my max contract. The offense, he moved me from the small forward to the power forward. I mean, he did a lot of great things for me when he came to Boston. So I'm always grateful for that.
I remember as a kid being a child reporter, being in the Celtics locker room, and you guys had Chauncey in that team. You had Purvis Ellison. If I'm not mistaken, Kenny Anderson was on that team too. You had a lot of different faces. And I remember you talked about Chauncey Billups. He had that part in the middle of his head. He had that Marbury part.
Yeah.
Was his, I feel like Chauncey was traded a lot and looked over and, became an NBA champion. When you look at Chauncey, is it like night and day being his teammate then versus now, or did you know then? I mean, it's cliche to say, did you know there was something special, but what did you see back then?
I think first of all, overall third pick in the draft, so he had a high skill set. But I think the thing that was great about Chauncey is that his size. He was a big point guard. He could post up smaller guards. He could shoot the three. I think he became a better three-point shooter as his career went on. I think obviously he would have learned how to run the team. because obviously we saw him be able to do it, but it was only, it was so early to kind of tell what he was going to be. But you knew he was going to be good. And we had a lot of success early. We was a 15-win team. I think that next year we won like 36, 37. So we doubled our wins. We started to make improvement, and he was a big part of it early on. So I thought he could have been great. But to say, that right now it's the big argument: should he be in the Hall of Fame or not?
Is he a Hall of Fame?
So it's tough. I mean, his resume is strong. I would have to say yes. It's very hard to keep a guy who was the Finals MVP, has an NBA championship, who's known for making a ton of clutch shots in his career. And besides probably from the little Boston episode, he's been a solid to great player on every team he's been on. So you have to put that in consideration. So I definitely believe he should be in the Hall of Fame.
So tell me something. Boston and Chicago. When my stepdad's from the West Side, Boston, I'm in and out being a Northeastern myself. Boston is not an easy city to play in. You look at New York, you look at LA, you look at Chicago too. You look at just all those different facets. Cam Newton comes into a situation playing for the Patriots, back behind the prowess and the greatness of Tom Brady. Is that a tough act to follow, and how should he handle that?
You know what's great? It's probably the best team for him to go to is New England. And I'm going to tell you why. New England it's a sports town. They get it. They understand sports. They understand all the nuances of the game. So you don't have to prove anything to them. Now, do they want you to perform at a high level? Yes, of course. But they will appreciate him. They will appreciate what Cam will bring to the game. And let's be honest, I'm not a football analyst, but I am a football sports guy. They don't have much offensively around him. So they understand it will be a struggle. But when Cam is giving it his all and, his mobility, using his legs and scrambling for extra 5 and 6, 7 yards, they're going to appreciate that. They know Tom Brady's a tough act to follow. And if the New England fans know, if the team does not make the same commitment that they made to Tom to continue to bring pieces around, because everybody talks about the Patriots. The Patriots is not like, if you look at the history, they're one of the franchises that take chances on players that's had some troubled backgrounds. If you really look at it, they take the chances, and it kind of flies on the radar. The one thing the Patriots don't really do, they don't keep them for long, but they do use them for whatever that situation is for that year or that moment. So I think if he keeps a level head, he comes in with the right attitude, the right spirit. I know he will. He's got a lot to play for. But it's, what I'm saying, sometimes this is what sports that bothers me. This is a guy that won the MVP of the league. It's the prime of his career, and it's unfortunate that he has to be in this situation. And it's kind of the same thing with Tom Brady. I don't know about Tom's situation, but if a guy gives you 6 championships in 20 years and has done what he's done for a franchise, you would think he would deserve to get, go out the way he wants to. So if he wanted to go out in New England and give it another shot, you would think the Patriots would do everything they can, but they ran it like a business. So this was a prime example to let guys know, in Cam's situation too, you are playing sports and you are a business. You got to handle the business first. Don't get me wrong. You want to win. You want to be the best player you possibly could be, but you got to handle business first, because when you're not able and when you lose that leverage, they take full advantage of you, and things don't work out pretty. They got Cam Newton playing he's on a make good deal. How does that happen? So
perception.
There's some things you got to think about.
Perception, and perception it becomes reality for a lot of people. When I hear the Tom Brady situation, it reminds me of Dwyane Wade in Miami when he left and then ended up being traded and coming back. Do you see a great in it too?
It's actually great. I didn't even think about that. When you really think about Dwyane Wade's situation, and obviously I know Dwyane, I know about that situation. It was the one thing Dwyane wanted to be taken care of. He wanted the Kobe Bryant deal. He wanted to, kind of, I think it's Kobe's like 2 for 60, 2 for 50 or something like that, kind of towards the end. And Pat Riley was not willing to give that to him. And that's what made Dwyane Wade leave. because he wanted to get rewarded for the things that he's done there for all the years he's played. And it's interesting. Hank Thomas is the agent of Dwyane Wade, and he passed away. And Pat Riley obviously has dealt with him over the years and came to the funeral as well. And they got a friendship back together at this funeral, and they got an opportunity to talk it out and apologize. And those guys end up making up, and Dwyane eventually worked his way back to Miami. And if you really look at how Dwyane Wade's last, I think it was 2 years when he went back, it was kind of the red carpet was laid out for Dwyane. And I think Pat Riley was trying to make means of not doing right by Dwyane Wade on his way out the door the first time.
So, want to tell me something? Cam Newton has the dab. I'm told you had something called the shimmy.
Yeah.
Two-part question. Where did the shimmy come from?
To be honest, man, it was not like something I just laid in the bed and thought about. I just was in college. I like to have fun. We used to always dance and play and do all types of things, when you're in school with your teammates. And in the game one day, I played a game with a lot of emotion. I just did it one time. And it's really hard to do because we're a pressing team back in college. So you got to get back in the press. And I just did it in college, and coach told me, look, you can dance all you want. I have no problem with it. But you got to make sure that you get in that press. So if you look at some of my old college footage, I used to do it in college. So it came from school. It just took me a while to have the balls to do it in the NBA. That's all.
It's the Mutombo moment. Mutombo had the finger wag. You had the shimmy.
Yeah.
Jay Williams had to slap the court when he was at Duke. Everybody has their thing. Second part question. Who does the shimmy better, you or Jason Tatum?
Tatum got some work to do. Nobody does it. Hold on. Nobody does the shimmy better than me. But nobody does it better than me. But he's got some work to do before I can even consider it. Actually, you know who has a nice shimmy? Steph Curry has a nice shimmy. John Wall has a nice shimmy. Mm-hmm. But Jason Tatum in the bottom of that list right now. He got some work to do. And then he doesn't see from him. He don't really show a lot of emotion when he plays. So he probably ain't really got no rhythm off the court. He probably can't really dance. I don't know. I haven't been around the new Celtics a lot.
So you're here with me, Heavy Live with Scoop B, here with Antoine Walker. You in the back have a Walker number 8 jersey in a display case.
Yes, sir.
So I've been doing some digging, and somebody told me that's not your 8 Walker. That's Kemba Walker's 8 Walker. Are my sources right?
No, that's Antoine Walker. That's how I mean. But
go ahead.
So let's the little small history, real quick. So when I got drafted in '96, mm-hmm. I was number 24 in college. Mm-hmm. So obviously, you go pro, you want your same number. I get on the phone, press conference. After I get drafted, the Celtics said, "What number you want?" 24. I said, "No, it's retired. That number's in the Raptors." So they said, "How about this? We're going to tell you what numbers we got available because we have quite a few numbers that's retired." So they went through the thing. So I picked 8 on the random, very random. Nothing meant by it. Didn't mean anything to me at all. It was just very random. And then I get drafted, and then Adidas. I signed with Adidas when I went pro. Mm-hmm. And the guy who was running Adidas at the time, Jim Gatto, came up with these sayings. New kid on the block, kind of goes along with Boston. Employee number 8. So he kind of made up all these things with the number 8. So that's how the number kind of got attached to me. So it was no real reason behind it. So the first time, obviously, I play, I get there, I get traded back to Boston. Mm-hmm. When I get traded back, Al Jefferson had it. So Al Jefferson had it. I had to give him a watch to get my watch. So I gave him a watch.
What kind of watch?
At that time, I want to say maybe like a Jacob. Remember Jacob watches
Yeah.
back in the day? Yeah, I think I got him
with the different bezels and the Come on,
I think I gave him a Jacob to get it. I got it back that time because I think I wore 88 for a couple days because I didn't know what number, so I got it back that time. And then when I left, I think Stephon put it on and Jeff Green had put it on when I left. But ironically enough, to get to the main part of the story is that Kemba Walker didn't know him. Obviously, I mean, I know him I don't know him personally or whatever, but we end up communicating through social media. And he asked for my blessing to be able to wear number 8, and I was like, man, how could you turn a guy, all-star, and a guy that actually that was nice enough to even include me in the thought process of wearing a jersey. So I was excited that he wore it. And then I saved everybody a lot of money. If you really think about it, I saved a lot of Celtics fans a lot of money. Now, Kemba Walker gets to wear. You can wear your Walker jersey. You can lie to him and say it's a Kemba Walker jersey. You can lie to me. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. But that's the real Antoine Walker jersey right there. You got to take a look. I'm moving to the side now. You got to take a look. Hey,
I see it.
You know who that is?
That's Mike, ain't it?
Oh, that's Bill Russell, buddy.
I can't see all the way. But I got you. I see the height now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's the real deal. That baby. That's put together.
Yeah, it's put together.
That's Bill Russell. That's one of my favorite little pictures I got of myself or trophies that I own. That one right there.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Bill Russell is no joke.
But also side though, that was actually I want to give Kemba a lot of respect for that. He didn't have to do that.
No.
He didn't have to do that at all. Like I said, we didn't have a prior relationship, but for him to reach out made me feel special. So
when assuming Kemba's jersey goes up into Raptors, number one, why isn't your jersey in the Boston Celtics-Raptors?
Well, I think anything to do with Celtics basketball right now it's unfortunate. And I'm gonna be honest, that the organization and team teach me really, really well. When I'm in town, if I ask for anything, they make me feel a part of the organization. But I think me and Danny Ainge had too many spats.
Okay.
And I believe I don't think Danny wants to be a part of that because I'm not one of his guys. Okay. If that makes sense. It does. And no offense, I hear that they're going to retire Kevin Garnett's jersey. Kevin won a championship, but I don't think people think of Kevin as Boston. And that's not offense. I mean, when you think of Kevin, you think of Minnesota. And he played great in Boston. I'm never taking anything away from Kevin. That's my boy. But you don't think about him being in the Raptors in Boston. But I think that he's making sure he take care of his guys.
For sure.
And I was never his guy, and we had public arguments. This is well documented. We've had war words, and I went back there twice. I got my opinion. He's got his opinion. And up until Paul's retirement, we put Paul's jersey in the Raptors. I hadn't seen Danny and spoke to Danny. That's the first time we even said hi to each other. And for whatever reason, I wasn't a guy he liked, and he did what he did. But I'm more mature for that now, and it's gone. But I think I really don't have a lot to do with Boston, the Celtic basketball. It's because of that. I think he wants to make sure, and I think the organization and owners kind of try to keep that separate. And it's Danny's world right now. Danny's the GM. He's head of basketball operations, so I understand it. And, I don't think he wants that, me in his background, so to say.
That's real, but I'm praying that does happen because you are part of Celtics history.
Hey, listen, I always tell people this. Boston is my second home. And that's from the organization standpoint, the way they treat me, and the way I get treated when I come back to the city. I always say that when I go back there, man, the fans make me feel great. I'm just talking about randomly just being out in public, whether I'm going to the airport, whether I'm at a restaurant, whether I'm at a bar, whatever it is. When I go back to Boston, I feel like it's my second home.
For sure.
And I always tell people that. I have a number of great things for that, and it's unfortunate, but people got to understand, and it took me a while to realize why I wasn't back in Boston in some capacity, but I get it. That's why I'm not back, and I understand that. And I'm not one of Danny's guys, so he's going to make sure he take care of his guys. And that's,
gentlemen, first.
Go ahead.
You have the ability at your size. I think you're playing weight 245. You were 6'8", to handle like a guard. And it's an easy thing to make the Barkley comparisons, the Clarence Weatherspoon comparisons. They're easy. A two-part question. Were you scared of the post? And the second part is, who did you model your game after back then? Like, who did you like and you said, I want to play like them?
Well, I was always one of those kids that was tall for his age. So when I was in high school, I thought my best way to make it professionally was going to be at the point guard position.
Okay.
So Magic Johnson was my favorite player. Magic was 6'9" point guard. So I was like, man, this is the best way for me to go. So when I was picking schools, recruiting, my junior year going into my senior year at camp and where all the the writers and publications that I played point guard. Mm-hmm. That whole summer at camp at AAU basketball and stuff like that. So that's where I kind of thought, okay, this is probably the best way for me to go pro or make it to pros is to be a point guard. And then Magic was my favorite player. So that's where that all started from. Never really thought myself as a power forward at all. Was I scared of the post? No. When I got with Coach Pitino in college, he started to make me post up a lot more. I think if people really look at my highlights, you'll see I do a lot of work from the post. Mm-hmm. And even as a pro, my biggest problem, I had a great post-up game. My problem was if I had a deficiency in my game is I didn't have an in-between game. Mm. I didn't have a 15-footer. You know what I mean? That was probably one of my biggest weaknesses. I was either trying to get all the way to the basket or I was shooting a three. I wasn't pulling up. I didn't have that Kevin Garnett 15-footer automatic, the Tim Duncan off the glass, you know what I mean, those type of guys game. So that probably was my biggest weakness. So I actually loved the post up. I scored a ton in the post. That's what people get in mixed shoe because at the time, and you got to think now it's easy because we got obviously the game has completely changed, but you got to remember back then it was really no big guy shooting threes at the volume that I was shooting. You get a guy occasionally shooting a three and you know what I mean, something like that. But I'm talking about I was shooting 7, 8 a game, sometimes 10 a game. You didn't get that at most times. So I think that's what really caught people off guard. Where as now, I mean, it's customary. You watch the Houston Rockets play; they shot 55 threes last night. So it's different now. So I think people sometimes, and you get lost in the rest. I was a volume 3-point shooter. I wasn't a great 3-point shooter, but I can make enough. I make big ones. See, that's the big one. When you make big ones, that's what people think, oh, but I can make big ones. I was never one of those 3-point shooters that want to sit and I'm going to try to Steph Curry to shoot threes. No, that's not what I do. I can make big threes, and my three was used as a weapon to outdo another big guy, to make him respect me, come out, and guard me. And but I love the post up. That was one of the easiest ways for me to score. But when I got pro and changed it up a little bit, like I say, when Coach Pitino moved me to the power forward, that was one of the advantages I had was being able to step out and make shots.
Chi-City is your home, and you were the baddest high school player, one of the baddest high school players to come out of the city. Who were some of the other baddest Chicago high school players back then?
Woo, man, it's a whole list of them. The best high school player, I'll just say this just to give him some love. The best high school player I've ever seen come out of the city of Chicago is Jamie Brandon. Never made it pro, went to LSU, but he was the best high school player that I ever seen. But it depends. I mean, it was guys that were a little older than me that were good, that they were like, I would say a Juwan Howard, Michael Finley. They had me by a year or two, but they were in high school when I was playing. They were a little older. In my class, it was different because it was really me, guys that never really, they went to Division I school, but they never really panned out. Like I was in school with Rashad Griffin, Tommy Hamilton, Michael Herman, Ronnie Fields, Kevin Garnett came to Chicago for a year and played. Bobby Simmons, Crew Richardson, those guys were, there's them. They were a little younger than me. I was about a year older than them, year or two older than them. So you had But Chicago high school basketball it was tough, and you know this being from Chicago, it's so many guys that are good that never made it.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't pass their test.
Yeah.
Became Prep 48, had to go to junior college, and there was so many of those guys that didn't pan out. But high school basketball in Chicago was great.
The 96 draft class is a loaded term because there's so many guys that have come out of 84, 96, 2003. How proud are you to be part of that 96 draft class?
I'm very proud of it. From top to bottom, and we can argue if people argue with me all the time. From top to bottom, even going into the second round, I think we had more impactful players than any draft ever. And and that's not me being biased. That's just me just looking at the guy's resume. But excited. It's a special draft class. I mean, when you look at some of the individual accomplishments of just a few players, I mean, 1, Kobe Bryant, 2, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Stephon Marbury is great, Kerry Kittles, Lorenzo Wright, rest his soul. Sharif Abdul-Rahim was a monster when he played. Marcus Camby was not shabby at all. I mean, and that's kind of like Jermaine O'Neal, late first round pick. So we had so much talent in that draft. And what's special about that 96 draft class, all guys were impactful on teams in their own way. If you think about it, at one point or another, you had probably 15 guys that were actually the franchise players. Mm-hmm. And, most teams don't get it right like that when they draft and guys turn into being the franchise. So you got to put that in perspective too.
No, that's real. You mentioned some of those guys that come out of your draft class, and so I'm going to paint the picture. Literally, for those who are watching on all of the different platforms, Periscope, Heavy Live with Scoop B talking with Antoine Walker. You can also find us on Heavy on Lakers, Heavy on Celtics, as well as on Twitter. That 96 draft class, Slam Magazine took that legendary picture. Guys, here's my question. Where the hell was Allen Iverson in that picture? Do you know?
He probably was late, man. So I know a lot of people don't understand when you go to the draft, it's a whole week process. Like they take you out there a week and you're doing all these photo shoots, media. You got so many things going on, and I think he just was late, man. And they just got tired of waiting. It was like one of those things that he just was late because you got all the trading cards, companies out there. You're taking all these photos on side of being excited about being at the draft. So all those things played a part. So I think that's where he was at.
You played at Mount Carmel with Donovan McNabb, legendary Philadelphia Eagle. Who would you compare his game to back then?
Basketball or
basketball. We know him as a football player. I'm curious from the basketball perspective.
I'll give you a weird name, Mitch Richmond.
Yeah.
I would say Mitch Richmond. Big 2 guard. He probably was more athletic than Mitch because we know Donovan was really athletic in high school. Yeah. But could shoot the 3, tough, get a bucket for you. He was a big part of my success in high school. I used to have to hold it down for about 4 or 5 games until he get himself together from football because they were playing for a state title every year. Yeah. But after that, I mean, we needed him. He was a terrific athlete. I always tell people that I was like telling people that Donovan could have easily played Division I basketball. What was he major Division I? No, but he probably was mid-major. Mm-hmm. He probably was a mid-major player that could play real minutes and been a part of a real program. So, but Mitch Richmond, if I had to compare him to a pro, would be him. But I don't want people to underlook that this is just a football guy playing. And it's funny because in school, and back then, a lot of people don't know. It was like you wanted to go to college. I know now it's different. Everybody wants to go pro. But back then, you wanted to go to college. And we used to argue every day about college, about what school we're going to go to. And Donovan was like, I'm playing both sports. If the school want me, they got to take me both sports. Got something for you didn't know. You know, Donovan was on the team when we won the national title.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the roster. Yeah, he was.
Really?
He was on Syracuse roster. He was on the bench. He was dressed in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he played two sports for a couple years before on the low before he decided because that was part of him going to Syracuse. He had to be able to play both sports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people didn't know that.
Where would you place your top five of Chicago ball players, past, present, in your lifetime or even before? Who are your top five?
First would be Mark Aguirre, who should be in the Hall of Fame. We need to start a petition for him like T.O. did for himself. We need to really push that for Mark Aguirre, and that's serious. Mark, Isaiah Thomas would be two. Three, I got to go with Derrick Rose. Not a lot of numbers for Derrick. Not a lot of numbers basketball-wise as far as like big stats, but I think he won it maybe all 4 years. 3 out of 4, he won a state title. Got to put him in there. Didn't see this, but I'm just top five. I got to get Dwyane Wade. Got to put Dwyane Wade in there. And then I'm going to be biased. You know, I might as well put myself in there. I got to be biased. Man. You know that.
There you go. You have to be. You could be subjective.
Yeah.
You could be subjective. Chicago was Michael Jordan's world. He's from North Carolina. He won 6 championships in Chicago. What was it like to play with Michael in the offseason?
I mean, obviously a huge fan of his when he was here rooting for him for the Bulls. The first 3 years that they won the titles. The next 3 I was actually playing against him. I had made it pro by then. But for me, it's an unbelievable time for me. 2001 to about 2007, 2008. Up until he bought the Charlotte Bobcats. I'm not sure. Hornets, I'm sorry. I keep saying Bobcats at the time. But I wouldn't trade it in for nothing in the world. Learned so much to be around, to me, the greatest player to ever play the game on a daily basis, to become a part of his inner circle, to be a part of his family. And it's something that I will always remember for the rest of my life. But the basketball aspect, to see the competitive drive that he had at 39 years old was unbelievable. The work ethic that he put in to be the best was unbelievable. So those are like things that and watching The Last Dance was like the confirmation, like I was around the real Michael. You know, I mean, to see that footage and not be his teammate and not really know him then, and like, man, this is the same stuff I used to see at 39, just working out with him and playing with him on an everyday basis. So, I mean, just, you know, it's for one of those moments, if you a sports guy, if you're a basketball guy, you appreciate and love the game, and you admire certain athletes. I got to know Michael on a very personal level. Like I said, I was a part of his circle on a daily basis, not just in the summertime, just all the time. And I will never forget some of those moments that I spent with him. And it wasn't all basketball, just the regular basic stuff that we done. And I'm always remember that.
Twan, you talked about I guess, patterning your game after Magic Johnson, and you know, you having the court vision at your height. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, in today's NBA, how would you kill it in positionless basketball?
I think I would have been in this game right now. I think I'd be one of the elite players, definitely one of the top 10, 15 players in the league right now, because the game just kind of it tailors for me. It's not. I probably average close to. I don't know how much basketball you saw me play in Dallas, but I would probably be a Dallas the way I played in Dallas. But I would have been. But I was shot more threes
Yeah,
Because in Dallas, I played with a lot of great 3-point shooters. So I played with Michael Finley, Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash. So I didn't have to shoot a lot of threes in Dallas. But it would be the Dallas Mavericks type. I played a ton of point forward in Dallas, a lot of point guard. But I think I would have definitely said, I would say this, I definitely would have made double the money I made. And I made a lot of money playing.
That's real.
I would have made double the money playing. The style right now fits me 1,000%.
You talked about the Mavericks and playing alongside not just Dirk and Michael Finley. I think you played with Marquise Daniels, Juwan Howard, a bunch of guys on Dallas.
Josh Howard's on that team, yeah.
When you look at two-part question, what do you think of Steve Nash as the head coach of the Nets?
I'm excited for Steve. Like I said, I played with Steve, so I got a chance to know Steve really well. I'm excited for new blood in the NBA. I'm a big guy. It's time to get the old guys out. I love and respect them, but it's time for some new blood to come in as far as coaches. We recycle too much in the NBA. Everything's a recycle. And, we need to start to bring in some new blood in the NBA. So I'm excited for that. Am I surprised? I think there's some other candidates that deserve a look. I think it's a little disappointing when we don't give guys a certain look. And I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint it as being Rachel, but if I'm going through a coaching search, how you don't sit down with Tyronn Lue, who's coached the best player in the league game, LeBron James, how you don't sit down with a Jason Kidd or Mark Jackson, and at least give these guys an interview. Then how do you, and what made me the most upset is you watch a guy, Jacques Vaughn, who's been around your guys, do a tremendous job with your guys, but you don't feel like he's good enough to be the head, but he's good enough to make him the highest paid assistant. Right. I don't know, and I understand Jacques' position, and he wants to keep a job, but to me that's a slap in the face to do that. So maybe, but I do love the fact that we got new blood in there, and Sean Marks I don't think went about it the right way. Probably could have camouflaged it a little bit better than what he did if that was just he was hell bent on keeping Steve. But I think Steve would be fine. Anytime you come in, you can get arguably 2 of the top 10 players in the league. And the East, I mean, that the East is a little bit more watered down than the Western Conference. I mean, he's going to be great. He's going to be fine. I don't know whether or not they can win a title, but they'll be in the mix. They'll be one of the top 4 teams in the league next year, easily. And it ain't hard to coach talent. It's not hard. Ask Steve Kerr.
For sure. You talk about talent. Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are young guys. Do you think? What do you think that the ceiling is for those guys if they stay healthy?
I like them. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not sold on European guys being my best player unless you're gonna do what Dallas did for Dirk. And Dallas put together real tough-minded guys that wanted to win a championship around him. Sean Marion, the Jason Kidds. Who was else on the team? He had about four Tyson. He had like 4 or 5 really good veterans around him to allow him to be the best player. I think if you look at what Dallas going to have to do, they're going to get a guy with some toughness because Luka's very very chippy, into it with refs and players, but which I like. I like the swag. I like the confidence. But your best player can't do the fighting. So you got to have somebody, the basketball fighting. I mean, but you got to have some tough guys. You got to look for Charles Oakley or Dennis Rodman. You got to look for those type of guys to play alongside them. So they got to get some tougher guys. I do like but their potential to be great is second to none because they got a little taste. And I do like some of the pieces around him. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. I like Steph Curry. They got some of the better shooters around them. So they've already got over the threshold. But now it's time to get a few defensive-minded guys, some role players that'll take a punch, that'll do some of the dirty work, and allow those guys to be great.
Tell me something. You talk about tough. You talk about playoffs. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the 2002 NBA playoffs. You as a Celtic going against the then New Jersey Nets. Kenyon Martin was your enemy on the court, at least. How tough was that going against that Nets team back in 2002 for you?
Well, two parts. Kenyon, I always tell people, Kenyon's probably the toughest guy for me to go against because of my skill set, because of my ability to step outside. People know Kenyon Martin's probably only 6'5", but he's athletic, jump to the moon, quick feet. So your typical move wasn't beat Kenyon Martin. You had to go to some extra stuff. You had to go to some extra moves to get by Kenyon. He was a great defender. So we had some unbelievable battles, me and Kenyon. Respect him to the utmost as a defender, as a competitor. So those were epic battles. We can't go. I think that, when you think about New Jersey, you think about some of those battles. We just called Jason Kidd in his prime, man. He was just, we couldn't match up. And no offense to Kenny. Kenny's my man. But Kidd was unbelievable for a couple years. Those 2 years they went to the finals. I don't think it was no other better point guard in the game than Jason Kidd. Those 2 years when they went back to the back-to-back final. See, people don't understand that we got them to the East. We get them in the Eastern Conference Finals. We up 2-1. Then we come back the following year. They sweep us in the second round. But those were epic battles, man. We played that team probably 30 times in 2 years, it seemed like. But we couldn't get past them. They were deep. People, Jason, Kerry Kittles, Keith Van Horn, Lucius Harris, Aaron Williams. They were loaded, man. But they had our number for some reason. It was one of those things. They had our number when it counted.
You've played with some great players: Dirk, Paul Pierce, Shaq, Wade. Who was your best teammate?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say Paul. And because we had so much respect for each other. And we could push each other. Me and Paul could curse each other out, call each other every name in the book, and we're still friends the next day, and we was ready to go. We had the same goals in mind. We wanted to help rebuild the Celtic organization. We wanted to get back to the playoffs. We were able to do that. We had aspirations of one day winning the title. But we got along so well on and off the court for the time that we played together. Even when I left and then came back, it was the same way when I left. And that would probably be my best teammate. Now, did I enjoy playing with some other guys? No question. Shaq, D. Wade, Gary Payton, love them. Enjoy playing with them. Some of my best teammates ever, but the best was Paul Pierce, hands down.
Who's funnier, Shaq or Gary Payton?
Shaq is funnier. Shaq is really funny, man. Shaq is one of those guys that make you feel good every day. Comes in, nice, same attitude, no problems. Shaq is that dude that you need in an 82-game season.
When did you know that you had to turn the Celtics over to Paul Pierce?
It wasn't so much turning over to him, but I felt like Paul was a better scorer than I was. I thought he got the fairness of the whistle better than me, which people may like, what do you mean? Paul could get to the foul line. If you look at when we played together, Paul gets in the line 8-9 times a game. I wasn't getting the fairness of the whistle. I had too many technical fouls. Our referees couldn't stand me. I looked at his skill set on the offensive end. He shoot the three, great mid-range game. He could take you inside. And that's when I really started to be like, okay, this could be a 1A, 1B type of situation. And I could defer to Paul on the offensive end. But in the locker room and off the court and things of that nature, I was still a leader. But it was a great partnership because we never did anything without each other's consent.
Yeah, Ryan Hollins told me recently. We talked about Paul Pierce, and last time we talked about it, Skip and Shannon ended up making it a topic on their show. So I'll go for it again. When you look at Paul Pierce, and I guess the way he talks about LeBron, some would argue that maybe he hates LeBron, and Ryan Hollins said he doesn't think that's the case. What he actually thinks it is the fact that Paul Pierce actually feels that he should be celebrated more than what he is. You look at the Kobe's, respectfully, God bless the dead. You look at LeBron, you look at the Michaels. You kind of gloss over Paul Pierce. So I guess my question for you, being his teammate, do you think people take Paul Pierce for granted?
I would say yes, from what I've read and what I've seen. I see him defend himself a lot, which there's nothing wrong with defending yourself, but he shouldn't have to. Paul is a first-time ballot Hall of Famer. I guarantee you the Carmelo Anthony's, the LeBron James, the Kevin Durant, in the elite small forwards in this league didn't want to see Paul know how tough Paul was offensively and the competitor he was. It does get overlooked for whatever reason. And sometimes, things go the way you finish your career. Paul kind of, he finished good, but he probably could have retired a year or two before.
Right.
Just like Kevin Garnett. Garnett could have probably retired a couple years before. But hey, if you can make millions and still do what you got to do, you got to do it. But I think Paul is underrated when it comes to some of the greatest, and he may always go down as underrated. But unbelievable. I mean, competitive. And I think when you think about, I think people don't understand is that, and you got to check the numbers. I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but I think those numbers were pretty compatible with LeBron James when they were going at it.
Do you think he actually hates LeBron though?
No, I don't think he hates LeBron. I think he respects LeBron. But I also, and I don't know this for sure, and I don't hate to speak for somebody, but me knowing Paul's competitive drive, Paul don't believe LeBron's that much better than him.
Gotcha.
And I do believe that. I believe Paul wouldn't mind. Paul would play on one-on-one every day of the week. I guarantee you that.
That's real.
And I know that. And that's just the competitor in him. You couldn't tell me Kobe Bryant wouldn't play Michael Jordan every day of the week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's it's kind of that type of thing. I think sometimes Paul's the way it comes out on TV, it seems that way. Because I remember him commenting about D Wade, and people got mad and said that D Wade, Paul believes, he's in that category. For whatever reason, he doesn't get that notoriety that those guys get. He's not celebrated like those guys, but he is that guy. People got to go back and look at prime Paul Pierce. And I think because he won it with KG and Ray, he don't get the same acclimates, the same credit as other guys. But if I remember, Paul Pierce was the MVP of the finals. Paul Pierce was still that guy when those guys came on that team.
Word. Two of your former teams are currently in the playoffs. So you got a matchup tonight, the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors, Game 5. What have you been paying attention to during the series? Do you like the series?
I love the series. The Celtics are doing much better than I thought. I thought they were going to have problems. I didn't know how healthy Kemba Walker was. And I thought, he was not 100%. And I'm not sure where he's at, but he's played pretty good so far. So I was worried about him. I thought they were going to miss Gordon. When you take 17.5 points out your lineup, you usually miss that. I don't care. I know the Celtics have 3 guys that average 20 points, but I thought they would miss Gordon a little bit. And I worried about the size of the Celtics. I thought I didn't know Robert Williams, who's playing great, was going to play as good as he's been playing. I worried about him a little bit. But they've surprised me. They've played terrific basketball. One thing you got to understand about Toronto's a veteran team. They won last year.
They did.
That group has been in some battles. They're playoff tough now, and they play together. It's a hard team to prepare for because they don't really have a star. I think Kyle Lowry is a very, very good player. Pascal Siakam could be a good player in this league where he could be considered one of the elites. He's not there yet. I know he made the All-Star team, but he's not there yet. Because on any given night, Franz VanVleet can be their best player. You know what I mean? So it's just a hard team to prepare for. But I thought their size would give the Celtics problems. Gasol and Serge Ibaka would give them some problems inside. And the Celtics have handled that really, really well. I think it's a 7-game series. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win it. I know it's going one thing I'm kind of sure is going 7. But you know how game 7s go.
Rough, and it can go any which direction.
It can go, it could be the 5th best guy. It could be Marcus Smart hitting 5 threes in the quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Celtics win the series. So it's one of those things. I mean, obviously, I'm a root for the Celtics in this moment, but I think it's going 7 games. Great series.
What's your prediction for Game 5?
I actually like Toronto tonight. The reason why, I just think the momentum has swung. I think they're going to loosen up a little bit. They're going to be a little bit more free. Celtics being up 2-0, losing, that heartbreaking 3. Now the series is tied. They got to kind of bounce back, get their stuff together. So I think about that too as well.
The other team, the other series rather, that's nobody expected the Bucks to do what they did last night without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's hurt. Your Miami Heat have a 3-1 lead over the Bucks. Is there any chance in heaven that you think the Bucks can come back?
Nah, he's too banged up, and I hope they don't bring him back. I think about Grant Hill's situation back when they was about to get swept, and they brought him back, and Grant Hill ended up hurting his ankle and being out and never become being the same player. I think Giannis has to think about his future. He's got too much on the table in the offseason.
If you could have played for the Bulls during your career, although they weren't the best, recently, but I guess in your career, how would the Bulls have done?
We'd have been horrible. We'd have been horrible, man. We didn't. The baby Bulls. And the team, even though towards the end, in the middle of my career, they started to do it, but in the beginning, they would not. They were rebuilding. They wasn't thinking about it. They had the season seats sold for the next 10 years. They wasn't rebuilding. Once they got Derek and #1 pick is when they started to really actually put some money back into the team and putting some pieces around there. And I think Derek was drafted in like 2008. So that was towards the end of my career. That it wouldn't have worked. It would have been horrible. And I would have been out a shitload of money just paying for tickets and having the whole family there for nothing.
Yeah,
it just would have been. It would have been a disaster.
Tell me something, Twan. A few more questions. You talked about the Bucks and Heat series. I'm curious to know what you think about the current Heat culture. Heat, do you think they have a chance to win it all this season?
I like the Heat. I do know about their culture very well. I love Eric Spoelstra. One thing I know, they're going to be prepared. They're going to play hard. They're going to have a system down pat. Jimmy Butler, his offensive game is a lot more polished than I thought it was. Watch him take over games late. But they're going to have a shot because they match any team in the East with style of play. They can play small. They got serviceable bigs, but they can shoot the 3. And what I love about it is they got a guy that can close the game out. And Jimmy Butler, who's going to make the right play, can score the basketball or get the ball to the shoes. They got a legitimate shot. And prior to the bubble, I didn't realize how good they were. And from the bubble, and now obviously watching them in the playoffs, they're very good. And they could be good for a couple years because they got some young pieces.
Look in your crystal ball. Do you think there's a snowball's chance somewhere in heaven that Giannis would fit in a Heat system, and would you like to see it?
He fits anywhere. And he fits in any system. I'm one of them loyal guys, so I'm not going to even sit here and say I want to see him go somewhere else. I want him to keep the Milwaukee Bucks good. That's just me personally. For him, business-wise, personal-wise, depending on what type of player he wants to be, if he wants to be considered one day in that elite category, he probably has to leave Milwaukee and go to a bigger market and do some things for himself off the court. I'm not sure how important that is to him. But basketball-wise, he can play on any team. I'm a little bit more into staying with your team and doing it with your team. So I would love to see him stay in Milwaukee and continue to build that team up. And it's going to be some bumps in the road. He's 24 years old. But one thing I can say about this, and I don't want to – watching these playoffs, he has so much more he can improve on. That's what makes it special. He's got a lot to work on. He's got to get himself a consistent jump shot. He has to get him an in-between game. And he's going to have to get him a post-up. And I know it's like, wow, this guy's going to be two-time MVP. Why would you say he needs all his work? In order for him to get to the next level, he's getting exposed right now. So he's getting exposed by a very good Miami team, well coached, and he's going to have to do some things to get his game up. You don't have to get great. You don't have to be the greatest three-point shooter or greatest mid-range. You just have to get some things in your game to loosen it up, to make the game easier for yourself as he continues to grow. And if he's willing to do that, I mean, I think he's going to be the MVP this year, but he may get it a couple more times. That's how talented he is.
How did it feel to finally get a ring in Miami?
It was unbelievable for me because I had never played for. When I was in Boston, it was all about let's get back to the playoffs. Let's become a consistent playoff team. The championship was always kind of a long shot in the mindset, at least in my mindset. I was like, man, I just want to get to the playoffs and see how we could do in the playoffs and be on the big stage. And then all of a sudden, as a free agent, you sign with Shaq and D Wade, and that's the only goal. The only goal is a title. It's a different preparation. It's a different mindset. And not only just playing with them, I'm playing with Gary Payton, Alonzo Mourning, James Posey, Jason Williams, Udonis Haslem. I'm playing with all guys that are like in the prime of their career or at the end of their career that all they care about is championship. So my mindset had to change. And I just was proud of myself that I was able to lock in to that type of team and be able to be a big part of what we was able to accomplish. So it was everything to me. And I would always tell people it was the funnest year I ever played as a pro. We had this thing that you said 15 strong, where we were all that we had to do it together. But this is the only team, man. You would go on the road, it'd be 7, 8 guys out to dinner together. We always had each other back. No matter, we didn't have a great season. I mean, it was average, 52 games. But the whole goal the whole season was win a title. We knew that we were built to win a title. No matter what nobody else said, no matter all the ups and downs. You got to remember, we went through a coaching change. We had Stan Van Gundy as a coach. Pat came down. No matter whatever we went through, the goal was to win a title. And that's what made it really special. And I would never forget that.
The Stan Van Gundy, Pat Riley switch, to me, I was in college when that happened. And to me, when I saw what they said and what it actually was, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was BS. Was it really him making a decision to leave for the betterment of the team, or was he really just not getting along with players in that locker room?
Stan got along. I mean, he does it differently. Stan's a screamer and the yeller.
Okay.
With the type of team that we got, that don't necessarily work all the time. And not saying it had to be the player's way, but he was just screamer yeller. I think what it was, Pat was very involved at the time. He's very involved in his coaches, whether from what I've seen, leaving notes, and he's in every practice, he's in every trip. He's involved. And for some coaches, that's difficult to do, to have your boss on your back, on your heels all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think that was something Stan was probably a little bit tired of. It was a crash course. Pat was a little anxious because I think we were like 10-10, but Shaq had missed like the first 10 games of the season. So we were only like 10-10. So I think that played a big part too. Pat was wanting to win right away, but it was good to have Pat Riley come down. We couldn't have won it. Nothing to take away from Stan, but that was a Pat Riley type team.
Literally have to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Pat Riley didn't need to be the coach. That was the right move by Pat coming down.
Yeah, and y'all won it.
Yeah.
Literally have two more questions. Number one, would you like to, two-part question in this first question, would you like to see a Lakers-Celtics NBA Finals, and who on the Celtics is checking LeBron?
I would love to see that. I don't know if I think about that game that was right before the pandemic. When Jason Tatum, I think he had like 40. 30, like it was like one of those games. Marcus Smart. I like to see Mark. I mean, no, he's got a little height on Marcus, but Marcus Smart, I think he could do it. He could be the one guy that I like to see on him. And I think that's what makes the Celtics a good chance to play against them in the finals, or it would make a good matchup in the finals because the Celtics have multiple bodies to throw at him. You know, you can put a Tatum on him, you can put a Jaylen Brown on him, Marcus Smart. The one thing a lot of teams don't have is a lot of bodies to put on LeBron, and the Celtics do have that.
Fleet Center or Rupp Arena?
Ooh, that's a nice one. I'm going to go with the Fleet Center, but I'm only going with the Fleet Center because in the playoffs, we used to call it the jungle. And that thing used to get we could get that thing really loud. Rupp Arena, 24,000, great atmosphere, blue and white, but we got an older fan base for college basketball. So you can actually come in there, even though a lot of teams don't come in there and get wins. You usually don't come in there and get wins, but it's not intimidating playing there. A lot of older fans, kind of more reserved crowd. Where when the Fleet Center, when it's in the playoffs mode, ain't nothing like it.
Ain't nothing like it. Here's the good news. You gave us your prediction for Celtics Raptors. You said you think that the Heat close it out against the Bucks in the next game. I think you pretty much punched your time clock in. Employee number 8, you're officially off the hot seat.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
My man, enjoy the rest of your day, and happy Labor Day.
All right. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
My man.